I think I just felt like every day I leave work so drained and so exhausted. And I didn't know why. I just at the time thought I must be burned out. I need something different. But these are things I've learned about myself since that make a lot more sense.
Hey, Erin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Rosie?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today. And we have a special guest today, Erin. She is the CEO of Balance Accountants. Isn't that a name so amazing? I love that name. It's just so good when you say accountants. We are always like so busy, so stressed. And look at the name, make me feel like relax. So,
Well,
Erin,
good.
yeah, before we dive into your CPA journey, can you share with the audience more about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, a little bit about me. I am the CEO of Well Balanced Accountants. I started this firm 13 years ago, and we primarily work with accounting firms. So accounting firms are our clients. So we can talk a little bit about the career shifts I've had over time. But my primary role now is as a coach and a consultant to accounting firms who are looking to grow their firm, improve the balance of their people, right? Whether that's through their development, improve retention, become a place where people want to work. But ultimately, that's where I spend my time. I live in San Diego, California with my husband and my dog. And if I'm not working, I'm either on the golf course playing golf or spending time with friends or just enjoying being outside in the beautiful weather.
Oh, you make me miss California. Oh, for audience, if you do not know, I live in California for a decade, and then I just relocated from California to Massachusetts 2 years ago. Wow, it's really cold here.
I was going to say it's a little bit colder there, isn't it?
I know. I remember you mentioned in one of our conversations that you did relocate from California to Washington, D.C. Is that
That's
correct?
correct. We were in Washington, D.C. area, actually in Alexandria, Virginia, for almost 3 years, from 2021 to 2024, and then have been back in San Diego now since then.
So you did not like the weather, that's why?
The weather was, yeah. And you know what? Community is so important for me, and I really missed my people that I had built, the friendships and the connections and the professional network that I had built for the 14 years that we were here. I really found myself missing those connections and found it a little bit hard to make those connections in a new city, especially because I work from home. It's not like I get to go into an office every day and meet my coworkers and build relationships that way. So I was certainly itching to get back. And yes, the weather had a lot to do with it.
It's just so cold over here now. We had snow like yesterday or 2 days ago. But whenever we have snow, it means that, oh my God, it's warming up. So it can have snow because a lot of time it's just too cold to have snow. And I can feel like my face burning when I walk outside with like very low temperature. But anyway, that's a weather story. I don't want to dive in too much about that in our conversation today. But Erin, you and I, we both involved so much with CPA. I would say I used to be. Not much anymore because I'm not in California now, but
Yeah.
you have been involved a lot with CPA. So you have a lot of experience with volunteering, making connection. That will be a great topic I want to touch later in our conversation about
Okay.
building connection and relationship. But at the beginning of your career, I would love to hear your story, how you start your career with accounting and what you do, how you land a job at EY after you graduate as well.
This is actually kind of a funny story, so I'm happy to start here. I grew up in Cleveland, so when we talk about the snow and the cold, I can completely relate. It's very cold there. which was part of the reason that when I was finished with college, I wanted to move away and try living somewhere else. But if we rewind just a little bit, when I originally went to school, I went to school in Alabama on a golf scholarship. And that school sadly no longer exists. Turns out they needed an accountant and maybe some leadership, but that school has recently closed its doors, really sadly. But I was there primarily for the focus of playing golf, and at the time was thinking about majoring in graphic design. They made the decision to change from Division I to NAIA, so a lot of us were losing our scholarship money. There were some other factors, and I decided to move home and transfer to a school called John Carroll University, which is in Cleveland. And when I arrived there, I knew I wanted to enter into the business school. They have a great business program. And the only thing I said to my parents was like, I'm really not sure what I want to do, but anything but accounting. I know I'm not going into accounting. That much is for sure. And as a transfer student, you kind of take what you can get with class offerings. So I didn't have a choice of professors, and I was sort of getting the last spots that were available in classes to get my required courses out of the way. And one of them, of course, was Accounting 101. And I ended up in a course with this professor who had a reputation for being the guy that was going to cut everybody who's not meant to be an accountant. He was tough. He made his class tough just for the sake of it, even though it was a required course. He just was taking no prisoners. So I was nervous, and I ended up in his course. And one day he was returning exams, and he came up to me and like he was going to say something. And I'm thinking, oh no, I've definitely failed this exam, right? And he came and he put the test down on the desk, and he said, Erin, you're really good at this. You should be an accountant. And I was like, okay, wow, that wasn't what I was expecting. And gosh, if this guy doesn't like anybody or think anyone's good at accounting, I must be really good at it. And that was honestly all it took. Then I thought I have to be an accountant. So everything shifted. And then I majored in accounting at John Carroll.
That's so funny.
It's very interesting. Like looking back, I think about we're so young when we're in college, right? And we're expected to know what we want to do with our lives. And I really didn't. And that's all it took was one person to say, you're good at this. And I didn't do much other research or digging into that. I ended up having a lot of friends in that, in my major, in my classes. I liked the people I was in class with. And so that part worked out. And then as far as getting a job, they make it so nice and easy. There's this beautifully laid out pathway of getting an internship and ultimately landing that first job. So I interned with EY in the Cleveland office in their audit practice, was offered a full-time job also in the Cleveland office of EY. And that's when I realized that I really wanted to move out of Ohio and get to the sunshine. So one day I decided, and honestly, looking back again, I think, where did I build up the courage to just pick up the phone and call this office and say, will you transfer my offer? I'd like to work in San Diego. But I did. I don't remember being nervous making that call, but I made the call. I guess I was thinking the worst they can say is no, and that's exactly what they said. They said, no, they've met all their needs in San Diego. We don't need anyone else. And so the part that I still have never quite figured out is how the next conversation came to be, which was the managing partner from San Diego called me and said, I heard that somebody from John Carroll wants to come and work in my office. Turns out he also went to that school. And this is a very small school. Many of you listening may have never heard of it before, but small world. And so that was how I ended up starting my day one as a professional at EY in the San Diego office.
Wow. Do you know anyone in San Diego in San Diego area in general, not just in San Diego office? Like, why did you make the decision to move to San Diego in California, not in Irvine, not in LA, not in San Francisco? Like, why at that location in California? Because it won't be much everywhere in California warmer than
Yes,
Ohio.
that's true. It's not hard to be warmer than Ohio, especially in wintertime. But we actually have some family friends that live in San Diego who had planted that seed with me several months, maybe even a year or so prior, about coming here. And then I came out and played golf a couple of times, took a few vacations out here, really fell in love with the city. But no, besides them, and in terms of like people my age, I didn't know anyone. So I went into my first day at EY not really having any sort of community here in San Diego. But a couple that family were still very close today. They were a rock for us, for sure, for me.
Yeah, and so how was your experience in the first couple of years in San Diego office?
It was honestly in that situation where I didn't know anyone, it was such a blessing to get to work with and have this built-in community of people all my age, all in the same boat. Some who had maybe were either from San Diego originally, moved away for school, and now were coming back. Some that had gone to school in San Diego and decided they wanted to stay. But it was a really cool group of people. We had a lot in common. We had a lot of fun together outside of the office. So built-in friends, I think that went a long way in terms of my feeling at home here. Of course, we worked a lot, but I think that liking the people that you work with makes such a difference. And respecting the people that you work with makes a huge difference. And I had the opportunity, not just with my peers, but I had a few really good leaders, some seniors and some managers that I worked with that really helped me along the way, challenged me, and just made it enjoyable. And it made the time go by faster for those days that we were working long hours.
Yeah, working long hours. That's what people normally hear about Big Four.
Yeah.
Like people afraid of working so many hours at not just I would say not just Big Four firm, even medium-sized firm. They still have to work a lot of hours as well. Is that
Mm-hmm.
the reason why you decide to leave EY?
It was likely a factor, but it wasn't all of it. And I will say it's kind of a work hard, play hard culture, because there were absolutely times that we would be able to cut loose and we had flexibility. I had the opportunity to play golf with partners a couple of times. I had a chance to, we had flexibility in how we used our time off. And this was before work from home was an option. So there were perks, absolutely. I think there are just pros and cons to everything. When it came to thinking about leaving, I think there were a few factors. First of all, a few of those managers that I really liked had moved on. And so they were part of the thing that made going into work enjoyable and fulfilling. And then they were leaving. I started to think, gosh, am I missing something out there? Maybe it is better out in industry or outside of the Big Four. The long hours certainly were challenging, and I think anybody would say, yeah, sure, I would like to work less. So
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
it was a combination of the two. I think the other factor deep down, I went into school, like I mentioned, not wanting to go into accounting. Accounting is something that I am good at, but it's not the most natural for me. I've learned this about myself later on in life. It takes an attention to detail that I don't naturally have. So when I have to, in a situation, apply that level of detail, it's really draining and exhausting for me. I didn't have the words to say that or to know that at the time. I think I just felt like every day I leave work so drained and so exhausted. And I didn't know why. I just, at the time, thought I must be burned out. I need something different. But these are things I've learned about myself since that make a lot more sense.
That's interesting that I think a lot of people they struggle to figure out like what they want in life at a young age. And it's not
Mhm.
easy for a lot of people to figure that out right away. Like I would think that if I go home from work and I'm exhausted, it's just because I work too hard.
Yeah.
It's not because do I really want to change something wrong with my career? Do we really want to shift to something else? It would take a while to figure that out. Like, oh, maybe I'm missing something in this career. Maybe I need to try something else new. So it's amazing that you identify the time when to leave and find what you really want in your career. So I'm just curious if you can walk me through how you find the next move that you know that that's going to be something that you are passionate about. That's what you are going to spend a lot of time on it every day.
Well, my next move was not the thing I was passionate about. My next move, to be clear, was absolutely a reaction to my circumstances. I thought, I'm burned out, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do this anymore. So I was working with a recruiter, and I vividly remember telling him, just get me a job, anything besides this, get me out. Which unfortunately a lot of people, I think, end up in that place. And then we're not making great decisions. We're not making logical or intentional decisions. It's fully reactive. It's just, let me get out of this discomfort that I'm feeling right now and feel better, at least for the moment. So I went into industry. I was working as a financial analyst, still very numbers heavy. It was still very detail oriented. Again, I didn't know this. I didn't have that information yet. I was then working with a lot of people who weren't necessarily my peers. I lost my peer group. Now I was working with a more diverse group of people, ages and things like that. So I didn't have the social aspect at work anymore, which I think made a big difference for me also. And so I guess the reason I share that is it's not necessarily a linear path. And there's, I think, no such thing as figuring it out, like what it is that you're supposed to do, because some people have that pull to do something different, but don't necessarily know what that thing is. And so they don't do it, or they don't jump into something. So for some people, it's a journey. And for me, it was a little bit of a journey of figuring out that actually working in industry was not the thing for me. And then what did I want? So I started working with a coach. I ended up enrolling in a coach training program, mostly for the self-reflection and the self-development, because I thought, if I'm not an accountant, what am I going to do, right? Who am I? I even started to think about what's the decision I would have made if I weren't pushed into accounting, and I wanted to get back connected to what that was that I really wanted to do. And that's how I ultimately found coaching and found my love for that, which is ultimately serving as the foundation for what I do now. So it was a bit of a journey.
So what's the difference when you mention about transitioning to coaching and from accounting? Like, people will be like a little bit confused here.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Can you walk us through in more
Sure.
details about that?
Yes. So I think at that point, again, a lot of coaching is about self-realization, understanding more about yourself, learning and growing internally. Also tapping into that inner knowing, which I felt very disconnected from. So at that time, if you had asked me, what do you want to do with your life? I really couldn't answer the question. So that was part of why I was drawn to it. Through that program, you end up getting to practice coaching. You go out and get coaching clients, and you get to start working in the field. And that's how I figured out that I really enjoyed that work and saw the opportunity to go out into business for myself, have the freedom and the flexibility that I wanted. At this time, I was getting really burned out by the accounting and, in this case, finance side of things. I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. So this provided a pathway to start my own practice and begin coaching. So I did that alongside. I was working still in finance, and then evenings after work, sometimes on my lunch break, on the weekends, I would take coaching clients and really focus on building up that skill until about I did that for about a year. And that's when I decided to fully go off on my own and begin coaching people. When I did that, again, I was so burned out, and I think I had a little bit of resentment towards the accounting profession too. So actually, when I started coaching people, I said, anybody but accountants. I don't want to coach accountants now. And did that for a little while. But, eventually found my way back because ultimately accountants are my people. And I really do. I don't think I've ever met one that I didn't like or couldn't have a conversation with. And so it's a little bit more about how we ended up here.
It's so funny. It seems like accounting chose you. Like from college, you said like I would study anything but accounting. And then you end up with the accounting major. And then you got burnout from accounting profession. You left with the coaching career and then say I would coach anyone but accountants. And now your firm mostly work with CPA firms, with accounting firms.
Yes. Only accountants.
You cannot leave accounting, Erin.
I cannot. I was actually thinking about that. Growing up, my dad worked in a family business that my grandfather had started. And my grandmother was the bookkeeper for that business. And so when we were little, we'd have sleepovers at grandma's house on the weekend. And I remember on Saturday morning, she would do the books. So I've actually been around accounting and bookkeeping for pretty much my whole life. I didn't really even know what she was doing. I just watched her meticulously by hand keep the ledgers for the company. And she would manually type out the checks using a typewriter to pay bills or pay payroll. And so again, I didn't understand it at the time, but I have been around accounting for a long time.
Is that amazing that you surround your whole life with accounting when you hate it so much?
Mm-hmm. And look, I didn't hate it. I love that there's like a right and a wrong, right? You know when something is correct because it balances, and you know when something is wrong that points towards, something is off here. I also think that's one of the things that challenged me with auditing, because you could just say, oh, well, we're close enough, right? We're within materiality, wave it, next thing. So it was a little bit challenging, so I like the problem solving component of it. I think I struggled with, again, the detail orientation and also the rules that's so rigid and not a lot of room for creativity.
Yeah, but now in this coaching position, you have a lot of room to be creative. So that's amazing. I'm just curious, how did you come up with the name Well-Balanced Accountants? Because I bet it was not the first name you came up because you decided to not work with accountants. So I expect the accountants not supposed to be on the name of the company. So walk me through. I'm just curious about that name.
Well, my company started off as Erin Daiber Coaching and Consulting. So I was clearly not in marketing for a reason, not terribly creative with that. But when I made the decision to come back and truly dedicate myself and my practice to working with accountants and accounting firms, I thought we need to rebrand. I knew I would want to scale the business beyond myself. I didn't want it to just be me. And so that was another factor in deciding we need to change it. So I was working with a branding expert and we were throwing around different ideas. And all of a sudden we both paused. We were on a Zoom kind of like this, and we both stopped, and she said, I have an idea. I said, I have one too. I think I've got it. And she's like, what is it? And I told her we were literally thinking the same thing, well-balanced accountants. And I love it because it points to really one of my commitments in working with firms and individuals inside of the firms is that accounting can be done. I really feel like we can run our practices and operate as CPAs with more balance. It just takes a lot of intention, and we have to get a little bit more creative and think outside the box of how we serve our clients and how we operate inside of the business, and set up different structures to support both a lifestyle for yourself and serving client needs. I've always believed that we could do a better job of that it didn't have to be so all or nothing, especially at busy times. And then there's just the little play on words about balancing the books, right? There's a kind of an accounting pun in there, and who doesn't love a little accounting humor?
Yep. And so you work with on these well-balanced accountants for like almost 13 years. That's a long time. The only thing I I have in my mind when I look at this name is that when you say well-balanced accountants, does that mean that all accountants are not balanced? Does that mean that people should be concerned about this profession, that if they join this profession, they will have a very tough time to balance their work and their life?
I think when I started, so 13 years ago, that was well before COVID. That was when things were operating, I guess, what I would consider more traditionally. Our profession has gone through a lot of changes recently. And so, yes, at the time, it was a big concern. A lot of firms were still operating under this mentality of having to work crazy hours during tax season, cramming all of this work into 3 or 4 months. And so it was a concern, and it was a concern for people thinking about entering the profession. We were starting to see the pipeline shrinking at that point, which we're still experiencing today. I think at the time I didn't know how. And at the very least, I thought I can work with individuals to help them feel more balance in their life, or integration. Work-life balance is it's always going to kind of ebb and flow. But how can I help individuals feel more at peace and more fulfilled in their whole life and not feel like I'm dedicating too much of my life, my time, my energy just to work? So that's really where it started. And now I think with some of the changes that have happened in the profession, it's much more possible for really everybody in the firm to experience more balance, whether that's, the introduction of more advisory level service. So firms are working with more complex clients and not as many of them. So we can schedule out and be more intentional about how and when we're working, setting boundaries with clients to say, hey, don't call me at the 11th hour. Don't show up on April 14th expecting your tax returns done. I think firms are in a better position today to do that. And I just think we're better professionals when we're feeling good about ourselves. And I think firms are starting to realize that this burnt out version where we're trying to squeeze the last bit of energy we can out of our team is not getting the firm the results that they want, or the clients the results that they want. So I think we're getting there in terms of everybody buying into this idea that if we can be more full and complete human beings, we can be better in general, better all the way around. Everybody wins.
Yeah, I agree. I agree about that, because when you feel good, you become way more efficient and effective about doing anything. It's just the same with me and the baby. When the baby gives me a good night's sleep, oh my God, I could get so many things to be done the following day. I was like, yes, I can knock this out. But when I'm so exhausted and I'm not feeling good, and I was like, it takes forever to just put dishes away. It takes forever to just fold a lot of laundry. So it's just simple thing about life that is probably applied the same at work as well. When you're not feeling good about yourself, it's very tough to get the job done. It's very tough to complete a tax return, to finish the audit report or anything.
Yeah.